My name is Oscar and I am the ambitious tech developer. If you would actually like to learn the fundamentals about programming and some advanced concepts, hit the subscribe button and join me for the ride. In this series, we're actually going to be learning about the object-oriented thought process, which is a book written by Matt Westfield. Have you ever been trying to learn a new object-oriented framework or object-oriented concept and there's just been something that you're not grasping or something that's missing so you could put all the pieces together? If so, this book might actually be the solution you're looking for, as it was for me. This book actually teaches us the fundamental of object-oriented concepts, object-oriented techniques, classes, but most importantly, how to think and approach our programming in an object-oriented way. So in chapter 1, we're actually just going to learn what an object is, what a class is, what's the difference between an object and a class, and basically just fundamental object-oriented concepts. So let's get started. So what's the difference between procedural and object-oriented programming? Well, there's many differences, but I'm just going to name a few. Procedural programming, data is actually passed individually, as in object-oriented programming, data is actually passed in complete objects. Not only that, but in procedural programming, it's actually very difficult to contain and reuse code, whereas in object-oriented programming, it's easier to structure and contain functionality in order to be actually reuse that code, simply by calling the class. So what's an object? Take into consideration that objects and classes are used interchangeably, for the most part, but there is a difference. Objects are basically the building blocks of object-oriented programming, and they contain information about itself through attributes and its own methods. So what's a class? Although the class has attributes as well as methods, think of the class as the template for an object. So now we're going to start getting into the concepts of object-oriented programming. One of them is encapsulation. Encapsulation basically just means containing information as private as possible, only for the objects that need it, and minimizing the things that they actually need as much as possible. We do that by using keywords: public, protected, and private. Public basically means that it's visible to all objects. Protected, it's actually only visible to the parent's class and other classes that extend that current class. And private means it's only visible to that current class. If you take a look at the code on the right hand side, get square is a public method, but calculate square is actually a private method. So get square doesn't really care and shouldn't care and doesn't really know how calculate square calculates the square of a value. All it expects is to receive a value. And that's the way it should be. You should actually, as good practice, is contain all the information as private as possible. Encapsulate all the information. It's easier for debugging and code reuse. The next concept is actually inheritance. Inheritance is basically just a class that extends another class and receives its properties, attributes, and methods through a super subclass relationship, better known yet as parent-child relationship. If you look at the right-hand side, it's actually human actually supplies its attribute and method to Johnny. Johnny extends human, as well as Marie. Marie extends human. But notice how Johnny and Marie, besides the function and attribute that they got from human, have their own method called football for Johnny and softball for Marie. Johnny and Marie extend human. That makes them subclasses, while human is the superclass for Johnny and Marie. Next, we have abstraction. Abstraction is basically just the act of breaking things down to a generic level and building on it. If you look at the classes on the right-hand side, German Shepherd actually extends the dog class, thus receiving all its properties. Dog class extends mammal, again receiving all its properties. Therefore, German Shepherd has the dog's properties and methods, as well as the mammal's properties and methods. So within German Shepherd, you would actually have bark frequency, as well as eye color, as well as bark and get eye color. Shepherd extends those classes, as well as poodle. Now we have polymorphism. Polymorphism basically just means doing the same thing in a different way. This concept actually allows the subclasses to override the superclasses' methods. So in this example, Johnny and Marie extend human. Human actually supplies an abstract method called work, but Johnny and Marie work differently. They have the same method, but they work differently. Johnny works in sales, while Marie actually works in the office. That's what you call polymorphism. It's actually doing the same thing, but in a different way. They all work, but they work differently. Last but not least, we have composition. Composition is just a class made up of other classes, or an object made up of other objects. Composition classes actually has a relationship type of classes and objects. Has a relationship is basically the concept which one class has, contains, and or belongs in another class, but it's not that class. For example, an ATM has a database, but the ATM is not a database. The ATM has a computer, but the ATM is not a computer in itself. The ATM has money, but the ATM is not money. The ATM is basically just an object made up of other objects. Now, to wrap it all up, encapsulation basically just means containing a class's properties hidden from other classes and only allowing access to them through certain avenues. Inheritance is when a subclass receives its superclass properties, the attributes and methods. Polymorphism is when a subclass has a method which was received from the superclass but has a different functionality of its own. And composition just means that an object is made up of other objects. If you would like to download the notes I took for this chapter, click on the link below in the subscription.